Allow each inhalation to deepen slowly and each exhalation to deepen slowly. Begin to lessen the distractions of your external reality, allowing your body to relax more and more into this position, into meditation. And you could check your body for a moment, doing a scan of your body. And notice any places you find you're holding tension in the body. And again, using the inhalation to open up space in the tension and allowing, with the exhalation, allowing it to release more and more. And then recheck your posture, finding the spine as extended as possible, if you can. Comfortable position for your hands. Make sure your shoulders are not up by your ears. And the eyes can be focused towards the tip of the nose. Head slightly tipped forward. So this is a subdued posture because we are bringing the gaze inward now. And trying as best as we can to lessen the outer distractions, but they will pop up. It's perfectly normal. Begin to focus your awareness on the breath deepening. If you can, noticing the expansion of the upper part of your body as you're breathing, as you're inhaling. And noting the changes as you exhale. If the mind wanders, simply become aware and then bring it back to the breath. And experiment a little bit right now because we have an idea we want to meditate and then we try to meditate and our minds appear unruly, scattered and distracted. And then we have little internal stories. I can't meditate. I'm not a good meditator. I have no concentration. So just trying is a huge step. You're just becoming aware of your mind. The huge step a lot of people on the planet are not able to do at all, not interested to do. But instead of the trying and the pushing and the squeezing, trying to make it happen, let's focus for a moment on the being. We're human beings. So for instance, can you explore a little bit right now? How is it to be in meditation instead of meditating? Just allowing yourself to be and noting what just normally arises in your mind. If there's thoughts coming through, no problem. Eventually they settle down if you don't follow after them and you return to the breath. And then more thoughts will bubble. We'll chase after those, become aware, and back to the breath. Just allowing myself to be with the natural arisal, natural falling of what arises, how the mind, the ideas come and go. Just explore that a little bit. And another way to help us take a bit more control of our minds is directing our awareness. And we do that often by setting a positive motivation or by setting a motivation, but in our case, let's make it positive. So just reflect for a moment on your purpose for being here right now. What you can begin to explore and understand about death from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, as well as the more practical reality of it. And if that can not only help you have a more peaceful death, or to help others to have a more peaceful death, can it help wake us up more to having more glorious, meaningful lives right now? And in our tradition, we're focused on, may that help us proceed to enlightenment quickly quickly because so many are suffering. And if we are enlightened, if we are Buddhas, we're then unlimited in helping all of them, helping all living beings. So if you like that motivation, it interests you, feel free to include that in your own motivation and take a moment right now to set that motivation. And the easiest death meditation we can do, I try to reflect on this every morning as I'm waking up, is today could be my last day. And I actually try to have it access that as if today is my last day. Just bring that into your mind for a moment. Initially, it can be scary for people, morbid. So there are those aspects when we explore death, and also based on how our society conditions us and our environment, our families, things like that. But if I really was actively dying today, what would be different for you right now? What would you be thinking about or focused on? Just explore that for a moment. And I will add, if you wake up in the morning or at any time of the day and you have that thought, this could be my last day, I will act as if this is my last day. And what I do in the morning is then I think, what's going to lend the most meaning to today then? If this is my last day, I would like to glean the most meaning, have it be the most meaningful day for me, if I can. And then I set that motivation. This is the direction I want my mind to go in as much as possible. I won't be able to keep it focused all 24 hours, but as much as possible in this direction. And then with that motivation, I get out of bed to help me again to reach that place where then I can benefit all living beings. And I have to make that meaning today because this is my last day. So please relax and slowly open your eyes. And as we did last night, when you open your eyes and come out of a meditation, savor the moment. Just take a minute or two before you start reaching for a pen, grabbing your coffee, moving around, and just notice what arises in the mind as you come back into our space. I've been finding that the savoring really helpful. Because we try to meditate for a time or we're doing a session and then we've dedicated or it ends and then immediately we're jumping up to the next thing. You know, and I've kind of missed a little pocket. There's a peaceful little pocket there that's lovely. So it's nice to just pause for a moment. And what happens with the pause is when I get more familiar with that, I can insert that pause at other times of the day. So for instance, last night we were discussing a different topic about self-compassion, but I mentioned our planet has pushed the pause button, and a lot of people use those terms. There's been a major pause. We're not doing our normal lives. Some people are not able to go to their offices or their workplaces. People are not able to see other people in person, and on and on. You know the whole drill. So if I can insert a pause in my life throughout the day, especially if I'm challenged and having difficulty with someone or something, and you have already a familiarity with pausing for a moment right in the difficulty, rather than just reacting and falling into the normal habits of your mind. Let's say those normal habits are not exactly where you want to be. So then if you push the pause, is that possible to start suddenly saying, well, I'm really challenged right now? Pause. What it tells me is I'm going to go back to take an inhalation and an exhalation. I'm going to focus on that for a couple of breaths. And in the respiration, I might just be thinking, this is really challenging. You know, this is not working right now, or I'm really irritated with this person, or whatever, and I'm just watching it. I'm watching it without having to get overly involved, overly reactive in a negative way. So you can use that pause throughout the day, anytime. And you can also use it when you're experiencing something wonderful and beautiful. So we are bringing presence. We're bringing presence, showing up present with my mind, whatever I'm encountering. And I mentioned last night this experience I'm exploring now, trying to really love everything. And what I mean by that is being present with something and appreciating. So for instance, I mentioned this last night. Here I am, we're all in front of a computer screen. And people have things around being in front of a computer screen all day or periods of the day. And we now have these terms, I'm zoomed out, or I have Zoom fatigue. Absolutely, right? And I also end up with a lot of email, and I have to spend a lot of time on email, and then I get irritated and say, well, I want to meditate. I want to go back and sit. And I didn't expect as a nun to be doing all these emails, right? But the thing is, then here I am in front of a computer, and then I can stop and pause. Instead of having the negative reactive mind, I can say, wow, look at my computer. Isn't it cool? Computers are pretty cool, right? Isn't it great? I have the ability to have a computer like this, and then I can hook it up and have a system that I can communicate with other people around the world with it. Like, you know, so I'm suddenly loving the computer and loving the format that this is possible for us to do. And you're having a cup of coffee, let's say, but I'm really tasting the coffee and thinking, wow, this is great. And what I was allowed to put in my coffee, if you put anything in it, and the cup that you have, you have a relationship with everything. Can I try to have a positive relationship with everything? You are engaged with somebody who is challenging you because of their political views, and you're having a conversation with them, or you go to the grocery store and you overhear them talking to someone about why they don't want to wear a mask, right? You're having a relationship with them. Even whether you say a word to them or not, you're just passing somebody on the street, or you see somebody without a mask. So we invent a story in our mind about them. If you like wearing masks and you think that's our responsibility, your story might be they're irresponsible. They don't care about people. But we don't know anything about their story. We don't know that they have asthma and they can't breathe through a mask. So when they're just walking down the street alone, they take it off. We have no idea. And that they're a first responder or they're a first line worker, an essential worker. So when I try to have a positive relationship, and if somebody's not wearing a mask, I might think, well, I might be able to learn something from their experience and their view. Doesn't mean I have to embrace that view, but people have different views, and I actually find that interesting. So last night we talked about turning toward discomfort with interest. Instead of turning toward it in many normal ways of ours, turning towards it with hostility. Get out of my face, with aversion. Get this person away from me. These people are stupid. You have to, when you have a reaction like that, it's perfectly normal. I'm not labeling you and judging you. This is about you waking up your mind in a positive way, if you like. So when you have a response like that, first of all, it's perfectly normal for all of us right now. And yes, this is a challenging time on the planet. So people say to me, I'm feeling more anxious. I've never felt anxiety before. I'm very depressed. And that's normal right now. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. We've had stories in the news about the Spanish flu, 1918. And there's a lot of stories in my area because in Philadelphia, they had a very bad time with it, mainly because there was a big parade that apparently they insisted on holding. So we've heard about that. So if the planet's still around in 100 years, they're going to hear about the COVID year or two that happened and how nobody could go to work and nobody could drive on the LA freeway and everything shut down and pollution levels dropped and people started working from, they're going to hear about, like this. This is a big time. So it's very normal to feel anxious and depressed and have reactions from there, okay? So I find it's, the more I can just be present with what's showing up and turn towards the discomfort with interest. Let me look at the anxiety then. Let me look at the depression. What else can I bring into my space that helps me feel more positive or more upbeat or healthier, like that? We all have some bad habits. Absolutely. So Dharma, I find, is a way to slowly, again, it's a slow process to turn myself from the bad habits. And you slowly introduce and familiarize yourself with positive habits. I know that is not an easy process. For instance, setting up a meditation practice or trying to sit 5 minutes a day. Trying to sit 5 minutes a day and introduce that into your life if you're not already doing it. Okay. And again, in the beginning, you are not going to be good at it because you haven't practiced it. So most people are not good in the beginning. What we say is good, meaning you have long periods of concentration. It's just not normal. When anything you learned how to do in the beginning, it took time. It took time. I'm working with somebody now with a practice she got from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, which is extensive, right? And she's very eager to get into this practice. So, and then there's an overwhelm that comes. So we do our 2 steps forward and then we take a step back and go, okay, wait, that was a little bit too much. And so sometimes in her overwhelm, she gets really eager and I want to do that and I want to do that. And then she says, but I'm not understanding this. This is too much. I forgot that. And then there's a pivot where she might start to get down on herself. And then I remind her about what was it like a year ago when she was introduced to this other practice that she now does in 5 minutes and knows it really well and has it memorized. So we have to remember that. This is a practice makes perfect, right? Practice makes perfect. So I just want to ask for a moment, and because I don't think we need to go to breakout groups because there's not so many of us. From the meditation that was posed, that this could be your last day, and then I asked you, what would you like to be thinking about on your last day? What might your experience be? What might you want to be doing? I just would like, if you want to raise your hand or unmute, what was your experience of that? Anything anybody would care to comment?
Yeah, I do.
Please. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Margot.
Where are you from? Where are you?
I'm from El Salvador.
Are you in El Salvador now?
No, I'm in New York, in Long Island.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure. I'm interested where everybody's in right now. Great. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today. I love this topic. I always been into dying, death, and explore more. I've been reading books a lot, and this is my first time having this like class, you know. So it's great. You did a great introduction. Thank you. And what I explored through thinking about I wake up and this is my last day. I was trying to do it before in my own, but it's good to have you guys now. It's different, right? It's great. So I always think that if will be my last day, and I'm thinking about this really, if I'm there. I mean, it's a little scary, of course, but I will think, what is the most important thing right now? Will be my loved ones, of course, love. Tell them that I love them, or maybe they forgive me, or I forgave them, or something. Be with the people who loves you, because at the end, this is what counts, loves, and it's just. I hope that happen. I don't know how we're gonna die, but I mean, if I have the chance to do that, that's what I would like to do.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And it is really nice with love to bring love in as much as possible. If I'm bringing that into my everyday experience now, that's what might be more accessible in my mind when I'm dying, when I have less control over the mind and body, right? If I'm having that response, like I said, my relationship with my computer, my relationship with what I'm drinking, my relationship with the environment I'm living in, and anybody that comes around this environment, meaning, there's a guy that mows the lawn. This is my parents' house. And so my relationship with him when he comes. I've seen other neighbors with the people that mow their lawns, and they're kind of like, rah, 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 but it's like, I can love him as well. And meaning in that sense of having that positive interaction. Now, let me just bring one, and what is your name? Is it Margot?
Yes.
Okay, great. One thing I want to talk about with loved ones, let's experience. Now, on one level, if it's a positive experience with your loved ones, fantastic. We were really fortunate a year ago when my dad passed. My family, we have a pretty harmonious relationship. And we were all there with him from different times. And some people were overseas, so they came in. And there were these really beautiful times just sitting around his bed with him. He was conscious. He was not in any pain. And he did have trouble speaking a bit and trouble organizing his mind at times, but he knew we were there and we enjoyed, and he was happy to hear us talking, and we had jokes and things like that. So that could be a very nice experience for you. Unless you have a lot of Dharma practice you might want to be doing and having your mind oriented like that. But if the love feels with the loved ones peaceful and supportive, can be a really nice experience. Now, what happens though is be cautious, because sometimes loved ones are distressed about your dying. So they may be crying over you. They may be begging you not to die. That they may be pushing other treatments on you that you do not want to do because they can't bear losing you. It's their agenda. They may not be hearing you, things like that. So you just have to be cautious depending on what the relationships are. So again, and one thing I'd say in general, taking care to get us ready for death, why not clean up those relationships now? We really need to take care of all those relationships now. If there's any that are not going well, is to clean it up now, because sometimes at the death time, it's too late. And you want to ask the person for forgiveness. Maybe they've died. They don't want to speak to you, like that. So something to think about. What else happened? So thank you. What else going on for anybody regarding just thinking today's my last day in the meditation? Anything else anyone would like to add? Yes, please.
Hi,
Teresa.
hello, everybody. Hi, Venerable Amy.
Hi,
Nice
how
to
are
meet
you?
you. I'm
Wait,
well. How are you?
Teresa from Pennsylvania?
Yeah,
Oh, yes,
yeah.
another Pennsylvanian. Welcome.
Yes, yes. It's nice.
Yes, great.
I think I've started to create it to be a little bit more of a habit. This idea of thinking in the morning that today could be my last day. It's not no longer daunting to me. But I think what might happen, I can sense that, I can feel it, I can experience it, but I find that I can forget it very easily as the day goes on. So that's one experience. But from that genuine place of motivation around it, I feel that um, it makes me want to create every moment to be meaningful, like what you were talking about. It makes me want to just cut all the bull crap. There's no time for negativity. There's no time for putting my energy into things that are meaningless and that aren't life-giving. And so it really is a very powerful motivation for me in my mind. But I do find that, it'll be like maybe the afternoon and it's like, oh, I like find myself doing something or my mindset's not really there anymore. I have to keep remembering.
Absolutely, and that's why it's perfectly fine. We set a motivation at the beginning of this class, but some people already set a motivation earlier today.
Mhm.
They started practice early. So for me, it was reestablishing a motivation. And
Mhm.
through the day, anytime you want, that's why the pause is important.
Mhm.
Like I know people now, they talk about, oh, the planet has a pause and it's really freaking them out. And I think it's really good for people to
Mhm.
pause and reevaluate. And look, whether it's a business that's reevaluating, well, everybody's working at home now. We don't really need that real estate space. Okay, that's a good evaluation. But I think on a more personal level too, it's like people are, they're reflecting more on things. And the ones that aren't really taking care of their mind, I think it freaks them out a bit. I've spoken to some people that have basically binge watched everything they can think of on Netflix now. They've been there and back, and they're
Yeah.
so bored. They call me and they're like, "I'm so bored," and I'm like, "Bored? I don't even know what that looks like. I don't really have that word in my vocabulary." But I get that. I understand that. And what happens is when you do binge watch, please check. First of all, we all need a break sometimes. You need some space out time to just vegetate. Absolutely. And if for you, if it's turning on a movie or something, okay, that, there's different ways we do that. But notice if you're binge watching, again, checking with your mind at the end of that period. So how am I feeling right now? Right? Now, I know it's a habit for some people, but notice how you feel. Most people I know don't feel well after that time. They feel spaced out, numbed out, like the mind has shifted off, turned off. And sometimes they tell me their body aches. Whatever they were lying on or the couch or the position, they're achy, their hips hurt, my back's hurting, and then they ate the entire bag of potato chips that they weren't going to do it because they were on a new diet. All these things come up. So then you kind of say, after doing it for like 3 days that week or the next week and the next week, once in a while, is this really how I want to be doing my downtime? So again, maybe you need to wean yourself off, like to cut it entirely, too difficult. Some people say, no, that's it, they're done. But some people, but again, you don't have the familiarity. So what I might do is after that period, and you go, I don't really feel very good now, can you insert reestablishing a motivation? Oh, wait a minute, I still have this evening left, or there's an hour left of the day. Let me just reorient my mind. And maybe I can actually dedicate at the end of the day any positive thing I did to getting me quickly enlightened to benefit others, or also to getting me to curtail, to try to shut down as many non-meaningful activities of my day and to give me the discipline to do that. Why? So I can get enlightened and benefit all living beings. So you can always reestablish that motivation, can always reestablish anytime. But again, it has to be accessible, meaning I have to remind myself and get that familiar with my mind. So again, I've told people before, if you need to leave notes around your house, on the refrigerator, your desk or your computer area, or near your bed, or in the bathroom mirror, you know, if that's something that gets your mind to go, oh yeah, wait a minute, motivation, I forgot. I already had 2 hours this morning and I forgot. Okay, just do it right then. Just you're redirecting and you're focusing your attention you're taking control of your mind and orienting it in the direction you want it to go. So no worries. I think the fact that you're thinking about it is great. So let's talk a little bit about it. And also I want to ask does it make sense for us to take a 5-minute, 10-minute break in this session? Will that help? Okay, if people need to go to the bathroom or something like that. Okay, we'll take a little bit later, we'll take a break, and we go till noon right now. I want to bring up traditionally, there's disadvantages of not remembering death and advantages to thinking about death. Now, again, people say it's morbid and on, but this is just from the Tibetan tradition. Let's explore this a little bit. Disadvantages, and there's 6 of each. Disadvantages of not remembering, if I don't think about death at all, which is a lot of the planet, right? You won't remember the Dharma. Okay, if you're on a spiritual path, you won't really remember the Dharma, number 1. Number 2, even if you remember the Dharma, you'll postpone your practice because I've got tomorrow. I've got later. I hear people, when I retire. And then I met somebody and they retired and they were going to get to these retreats and this practice. And then they got really bad cancer. And then the whole time was spent dealing with the cancer until they died. Okay. Number 3, you may try to practice, but your Dharma practice won't be very pure. You try, but you know, I know some people that told me they've got their phone next to them when they're practicing and their phone doesn't have prayers on it, but just in case they get a text, or in case they just want to check the email, or that, you know, in the middle of their practice, it's not a very pure way to practice inviting numerous distractions in because our minds are distracted enough. Number 4, disadvantages. You'll lose your determination to practice Dharma and eventually will drop it altogether. Number 5, you'll continue creating negative actions and become unsuitable for reaching nirvana or liberation. And number 6 is, and this is one of the worst, at the time of death, you may experience intense regret at having wasted this precious opportunity that you have. So again, you won't remember Dharma. Even if you do, you'll postpone your practice. You'll try to practice, but your practice won't be very pure. You'll lose your determination and to practice Dharma and eventually drop it. You'll continue creating negative actions, becoming unsuitable for nirvana, and at the time of death, you'll experience tremendous regret at having wasted this opportunity. Let's look at the advantages to thinking about death, okay? Your Dharma practice becomes pure, number 1. Number 2, your Dharma actions become powerful and effective. Number 3, 3, 4, and 5 are somewhat related, as they'll say it's beneficial to think about death in the beginning, middle, and end. And I would relate that to the beginning, middle, and end of your life, and the beginning and middle and end of your practices, which go along with your life, okay? So for instance, in the beginning of your life, and it could be any time, like now you meet the Dharma, or earlier, if you happen to meet the Dharma earlier in life, fantastic, because it brings more familiarity with certain things when you're younger that you can do more and more to motivate you. Certainly in the beginning of your practice, it's beneficial to think about death because that can motivate you to practice. In the middle of your life, a lot of people in the middle of life, if they've met the Dharma, they might be buying a home, advancing their career, having a relationship, getting married, having children. The Dharma is super helpful for any of that, to orient you in the best way. You may have less time to practice Dharma if those things are a little bit more important to you, that's natural, but it can still incredibly inform all of those things you're doing at that piece of your life. However, in the middle of your practice, why it's beneficial is sometimes in your practice you reach a plateau and things can get a bit dry. And then if I think about death, it kind of lights it up again. Oh yeah, I need to continue to do these things, even though I'm doing them over and over. And the Western mind sometimes says, I'm a little bit bored with this, or I've already read that book, and do I need to read it again? You know, I don't really remember all the things that I read in it. So when I respond and think about death, it can help wake me up and revitalize the practice to keep it rich and consistent. At the end of your life, while it's advantageous to think of death at the end of your life, that's really all that's going to be there for you. If you're familiarized enough with Dharma practices and how you would like your mind oriented so that you can have a peaceful death and not feel like you've wasted years and years like that. So those are kind of just some beginning preliminaries. And again, if you want, at times you can meditate on those, reflecting more deeply on each of the 6 situations under disadvantages and advantages to really think about, you know, why I'm not practicing, or, you know, how beneficial it is if I am practicing. Okay. Let's go into the more traditional approach called the 9-point death meditation. The 9-point death meditation. And then I'll explain this, and then we're going to take a short break and we'll come back and do a meditation on it. And in the break, I'd like you to reflect on these points a little more deeply. So 9-point death meditation is a traditional Tibetan view of how to meditate on death to have it most effective for your mind, to wake you up in life and get you practicing. Let's look at this. And they say it's divided into 3 roots. Under each root, there are 3 reasonings to convince you, to have you experience and have a realization of that root. And then there's 3 resolutions of each root that leads you to this understanding so that your life has more meaning. So let's look at these. The 3 roots are, and without looking at anybody's notes, some of you are familiar with this. If you want to unmute, what's root number 1? What do people remember? What's anybody remember? And Elizabeth, nice to have your camera finally with you and to see you. How nice. Anyone, if you want to unmute, what would root number 1 be from what people remember? 9-point death meditation. What's the main heading?
Death is certain.
Death is certain. Thank you, George. Death is certain. What's number 2? Anybody?
The time of death is uncertain.
Thank you, Patty. The time of death is uncertain. And number 3?
The only thing that'll help you at death is the Dharma.
Is the Dharma. Thank you. Okay, let's look at the 3 reasonings right now under death is certain. Death is certain. Number 1 reasoning, again, 3 reasonings under this root. Number 1, everybody dies. Everybody dies. And they'll even say, there's no power in the universe that can stop death coming to you. So when you're meditating on this, and we are going to do some of these meditations after the break, you want to consider, and I'd like you to think about this in the break time. If you can, try to do these exercises in the break time. Everybody dies. Who do you know that is not going to have this experience of death? So let's think. First, we kind of could swim around some famous people. For instance, I might think of the brightest minds on the planet. What comes to mind for me could be Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, all the incredible scientists and philosophers and brilliant people like that. But, you know, Einstein and Hawking have died. You know, they couldn't think a way out of it. With all the amazing things that they did and their discoveries, and they couldn't think of a way out of death. So you can kind of explore that a little bit, like, Who are the smartest people that you actually personally know? Are they going to find a way out of death? What about powerful people? There's people on the planet that could start nuclear war and that could also constitute peace on this entire planet. Some really powerful people could do that. Are they going to escape death? What about the most creative people on the planet, like Beethoven and Mozart and John Lennon and Kurt Cobain? And they died. They didn't seem to be able to find a creative way out of death. So you kind of go through these things. The richest people on the planet, they haven't found a way to bribe their way out of death. They die. They die. And some really momentous people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi, Mother Teresa. Jesus died. Like if they couldn't figure out a way, I mean, they might say, well, he was resurrected. The Buddha died. The Buddha died. If the Buddha couldn't figure out a way for this body to last forever, this is matter. There's no way you can keep this going. We see it. Most of us see it decaying every day. Your body, there's some change in the body that it is degenerating. It's normal. It's normal. Now, your mind in Tibetan Buddhism, and we're going to talk about that later, has a different experience entirely that can go on. That's what's exciting about this practice. But the body, you can't keep this going. Can you? Think about it. Okay, so everybody dies. There's no power in the universe. You want to explore that. Okay. And you can even think right now, looking at our group, in 100 years, none of us are going to be around. None of us will be here. I mean, unless they invent some elixir and some pill, but no. What's the oldest person? I don't know if anybody, did any of you watch His Holiness last night? Anybody? And so it was late. It's again, one more night tonight, and you can go to His Holiness's schedule, and he is giving teachings every few days, something, and I like to watch it live, and it was really nice last night. And I got to see a few of my Indian friends on the Zoom. There's a few people that it was great to see them. And His Holiness said that he is going to try to live, I think, did he say like 20 more years or something? 15, 20 more years? I was like, thank you. But it can't go on forever in the body. I hate to think of it. But I was like, maybe we can create the conditions, the causes for him to live that long, to continue to live that long. We need him here on the planet. I really feel that. Okay. So again, you cannot run away from death. Even if you're strong, even if you have miraculous powers like the Buddha had, like some of the saints had, like that. And I'd really like to bring into our hearts today, because John Lewis just died. And if you're familiar, he was a congressman from the South who did incredible civil rights work for years with Martin Luther King Jr. And it's all he's been as a focus of that on the planet. And he was 80 years old and died of pancreatic cancer. And it's really a loss, I think, for our whole movement of civil rights and human rights, and an amazing beacon like that, John Lewis. So he died. He did some incredible work, and he died like that. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, you cannot add to this lifespan. Every minute you're closer to death. Every minute you're closer to death. So you can certainly avert an earlier death by doing certain practices that may be recommended to you by a highly realized being, like that can shift some life obstacles, absolutely. But generally, our birth was, we got dropped out of an airplane without a parachute, and our life is just the falling, and eventually we're going to reach the ground and we're going to die. So you could have an exploration right now. Every inhalation, every exhalation, I'm another breath closer to death. Every step I take, I'm another step closer to death. This is really a nice way to practice in the break time. You decide to get something to drink, I'm another drink closer to death. I'm another sip closer. I'm another Saturday closer to death. We're another July closer, another summer closer. Depending on your climate, right now where I live, I'm another really hot day closer to death. Like that. So you can again mark, like, we're not able to expand that. I am closer. Every day I'm closer. It's coming. It's definitely coming. Okay. Number 3, reasoning. Under death is certain. While you're still alive with free time to practice the Dharma, it's actually extremely limited, the actual practice that we do before you have to die. So think about a normal, let's say 75-year lifespan. Not that everybody gets 75 years, but they say for a decent Dharma practitioner with a 75-year lifespan, the formal practice you're actually doing is about 5 years. So think about, that's the imprints you're making. 70 years of other stuff in your mind, 5 years of the Dharma. So, and just think about it. A lot of people spend a third of their life sleeping. If you sleep about 7-8 hours a day, that's a third of your life. Okay, and people need sleep. So a third is gone with sleeping. That's a lot. Then you've got working, and a lot of us had for years education, all those years we spent in school. Now, not that that was meaningless, okay, but it took up a lot of time away from Dharma unless we were in a Dharma school. Working, developing a career, and then there's all the stuff with the body. Cleaning yourself, adorning yourself, figuring out thinking about what to wear if that's important, your hair, grooming, skin stuff, jewelry, whatever it is, all that time. And then there's issues around food, feeding yourself, buying the food, cooking the food, getting the takeout. How much time do you spend doing stuff like that? And then there's all the other stuff, having relationships. If you're in and out of relationships or developing your relationship, or you're married to somebody, or you have children and all the interactions and all that, how much of that is involved with the Dharma, where you're at a Dharma course with a family member? And we've got the lovely Margot, and you're a couple, so you're both there together. It's a great way to practice together like that. So we can think there's no way. And what happens is when you're younger, you kind of think you have a lot of time and you put off practicing till later. I've got time later. I'm gonna get my practice together after I move. I'm gonna get my practice together and set up that meditation space after I get the new job, or after I get married, or once we get the house. You don't know what comes first, death or the new house or the new job. So the resolution that comes from these 3 points is knowing that I'm going to die, knowing that death is certain, I must resolve to practice. Knowing that death is certain and that I'm going to die, I must resolve to practice. Second main heading, the time of death is uncertain. This is harder for us to realize. The first main root, death is certain, I think most of us get it, and we certainly get it here intellectually. We know we're going to die. But a lot of people with their language, and I'll hear them say, when I'm old, okay, you don't know that you'll live to be old. So these are the 3 reasonings under the time of death is uncertain. Number 1 reasoning, we live in a world system with an unfixed lifespan on planet Earth. So our age, it's very uncertain how long we'll live. Buddhism talks about other world systems where you know exactly how much time you have and when you'll die. Everybody gets the same amount, but not on planet Earth. So again, you can reflect in the break time, all the different ages of people you know, the ages they died are all different. Some people die young, unfortunately. Some die suddenly when you never expected it. dying sooner than the aging relative with cancer that you thought was near death. This happens many times. Now we have this COVID virus, and it's really uncertain who dies from it. Sometimes young people die from it, even though a lot of young people feel immune to it. And then you see something in the news of some 30-year-old on a respirator dying like that. You just don't know. So age is no guarantee. Children, unfortunately, do die before their parents. One of the saddest things on earth. Your health is no guarantee. Because again, I know people that were quite healthy that died before somebody in their family who was really ill. We all know situations like that. We also make future plans, right? And we feel like, well, that's definitely going to happen. I've planned where I'm leading another pilgrimage to Laudo next year, hopefully, but I don't know whether we'll postpone again because of the COVID virus and whether it will be safe for people. And if it's not safe, we won't go. We postponed this year. So I plan it, but I don't know if I'll die first. I have no idea. I'm hoping we can go, and some things you need to make plans, but I often make plans and think, so one thing I think about, if you do make plans, I know people that, plan the vacation. This is maybe before COVID, they bought the air tickets, they've rented the house at the shore, all these different things they've done, right? As if that's definitely going to happen. You don't know that it will happen. You don't know. Number 2, reasoning, the time of death is uncertain. The things that kill us are many. The things that keep us alive are few. Again, the things that kill us are many. The things that keep us alive are few. There's many external conditions that cause your death, like accidents, natural disasters, things like that. There's internal conditions like illnesses that you can get, bacterias, viruses that can kill you. There's many of them, actually. It's almost sometimes the fact that we can walk the earth and be relatively healthy. Most people I know have some sort of something going on with them. It could be a manageable chronic disease. It could be some kind of autoimmune issue that they manage, and they take some medication to remain relatively healthy. They might have diabetes, adult onset diabetes. I know somebody that has a couple people that have diabetes from childhood. That's more serious. People with skin conditions, people with digestive issues, people with migraine headaches. Like, there's all kinds of things floating around, and sometimes these things kill you, unfortunately. So, and even things that normally sustain life can become conditions for death. Food poisoning. Food is a good thing. That supports our lives, and sometimes you get tainted food, botulism, something like that. Some bacteria crawls in, and suddenly you're fighting for your life in a hospital. Like that. There's medicines that you can have an adverse reaction that kill you. You're given the medicine, this is going to help you, suddenly fighting for death. We know people that go in for surgery for a minor thing and end up not making it off the table, operating table, because something happened. That's number 2. Many things can kill us, not many things keeping us alive. Number 3, reasoning under death is certain. The body is extremely fragile, very delicate, the body, okay? So think about in a car accident, what happens because the force and then the materials of the car with that force are stronger than what the body can sustain. So the body gets crushed like that. So in an earthquake, if you're outside, generally it would be hard to die. Okay, but if you're outside in a city during an earthquake and a building is falling down and glass is shattering around you, that can kill you. Or you're in a building that collapses during an earthquake, because those materials are stronger than the body. The body's very delicate. There was a man, when I lived in the Santa Cruz, California area, we had a member of our community And you know, Santa Cruz is a pretty clean place, I would say, in general. You know, it's a beach town. He was gardening at his house in Santa Cruz, and he nicked his foot with a rake. You know how you get a little cut on something and you might be using clippers and you scrape your hand. Anyway, he nicked his toe with a rake. It wasn't even a big deal. And that night was in the hospital fighting for his life with flesh-eating bacteria from that cut. Can you imagine? Body's delicate. He survived. Amazing, right? So the resolution that comes from these three reasonings is knowing that I could die at any time. I must stop sacrificing my life to worldly concerns and immediately practice Dharma from today on. So it's not only resolving that knowing that I'm going to die, I must resolve to practice Dharma while I'm alive, but I must resolve to practice Dharma now. So you add that now in, it's urgent. I've got to get started now. I can't waste any more time because I don't know when it's coming. Could be today, could be 6 o'clock tonight. And people say to me, don't say that you're creating your death, because in the morning, that's my motivation is 6 o'clock tonight, I'm gone. Okay, how do you want to use the day? Okay, and not every one of my days goes well. Not every one of my days is all full of Dharma. Sometimes it's not. Distractions arise, interruptions happen. I am giving it my best shot though, okay? But I say 6 o'clock and people have said to me, don't say that. That's really scary. You're going to create your death. Well, I've been doing this every day for years. I haven't died yet. So no, it doesn't cause your death. It causes you to wake up. This is what we need to do. We need to wake up. Okay, third reasoning, then we're going to take a break. The third main root is only Dharma helps at the death time. Only Dharma helps at the death time. Let's look at these three reasonings. Number one, money and possessions cannot help you at the death time. And I'd even say position and possessions, sometimes I say. Money and possessions. People say, well, if I had a lot of money, I could die the way I want to die. How's your mind? I've been with rich people dying with every perfect accoutrement around them. The full-time nursing care, dying at home, every machine there, comfortable, and they're miserable. The mind is miserable, railing at everybody, raging, fearful, like that. And I've met people really poor dying peaceful. So money isn't really, some people very attached to their possessions and their money at the end. And people in the room fighting over the will and they're still hearing can be very torturous for people. So that's not really necessarily going to help you at the death time. If you do have a lot of money and you want to set up how you'd like to die around you, that's great. And you tell everybody, I want this, I want to die at home, I want full-time care, and you can afford it, but make sure your mind is also going to be in a beneficial, peaceful place, like that. Number two, this is tricky for people. Friends and family cannot help. Friends and family cannot help. Okay, this can be debatable, okay? Partly what can happen if they're not geared to Dharma practice and your wishes, they could be crying over you, completely distraught at losing you, begging you not to die when there's nothing you can really do. If you've got a slow death from aging or illness, there's not a lot you can do about that. And here they are begging you not to leave due to their attachment. What does that do for your mind? Think about it. What does it do for your mind? The other thing is they cannot experience death with you. You're doing it by yourself. They don't know what you're going through. Even if you're in a car accident with someone or a plane crash and you're both dying, it's your solo experience. Whatever happens to your mind is your experience alone. Yes, you're both experiencing the plane crash. You both have karma for that to be happening. That's our topic tomorrow, okay? But your experience is yours alone, even if you die at the same time with someone, okay? It's experienced by ourselves alone. So this is a way friends and family can be helpful, is if they're clear, you've helped them be clear on your wishes, what you want at the death time when you're actively dying and you've set everything up, and you've got people that know your Dharma practice, and they are around you, reminding you of the practice, showing you pictures that you've wanted to see, doing the practice with you, playing the practices on devices that you can hear that you've set up, that can be very helpful for you. You know, maybe they've gotten some people in to do pujas for you, to do rituals for you. That could be very helpful. But a lot of people's families are not Buddhist, and they don't know what to do. So I've been called sometimes by people's families that are not Buddhist to be there for somebody that said, get somebody here, get a Buddhist here for me, get a monk or a nun or somebody to do these practices. And it's nice that they have reached out and honored the wishes, and then I can be there. And a lot of the families, when I've done that, are very happy to participate. Like if I'm reading a medicine Buddha practice, I first explain what are they comfortable with, and then I explain, and I have booklets for people if they like. We can always get copies, and some of them are very eager to participate along because you can read in English. And so that can be very nice, keeping the room peaceful, keeping agitation out of the room, and honoring somebody's wishes. Number 3, reasoning. Not even your body can help you with the death time. That's often the reason you're dying. So that's not going to be of any help. So these 3 reasonings, which are relatively easy to realize, that money and possessions are of no help, friends and family are of limited help, the body is not helpful, brings you to a resolution. Finally, since nothing else can help me, I must devote myself fully to pure Dharma practice. So again, not only must I practice, but I must practice now, and I must practice well. So that's the 9-point death meditation. Let's take a no more than 10-minute break, okay? And I'd like you to reflect in the break. If you'd like to get up, think for a moment. I'm a step closer to death. Every step you take, I'm another step closer to death. If you have something to drink, I'm another sip closer to death. I'm another breath closer to death. I'm another breath closer to death. And reflect on those 9 points. What stuck out for you? What alarmed you? What was your response to something? What have you been very comfortable with and you understand? Okay, 10 minutes. Okay. Before we do a meditation, any questions, comments from anything we've been speaking about, or anything that came up when you were reflecting at the break, if you had a chance? Yes, please.
Yes, thank you, Amy. I was just wondering a couple of things. Probably, and I have to say, the reason why I'm even doing this, and I'm very new to Buddhism, but this particular class is I have a tremendous fear of death, and even worse, the suffering. Being in a nursing home, being alone, because I've seen it with relatives and even my own mother. But I think one of the things that I always wonder. I don't know if you can get into it. I think it's death's biggest mystery. What happens after? And then that to me is the biggest fear. Do we? And because I'm more of an agnostic, and sometimes I feel, do we just cease to exist and that's it? I know Buddhism seems to go more into from what I'm learning, the past lives. I don't know if all Buddhists believe that. And every religion has its own interpretation of what happens after death. But I think that's the biggest mystery. No one can really come back and tell you the experience, unless you're really into the paranormal or whatever. But that's my comment.
Yes, so we are going to look at what happens after you die according to the Buddhist tradition, because actually the Buddha, who was considered omniscient, meaning all-knowing, basically told us this is what happens. So, Buddhists do believe in reincarnation, and we are going to talk about that a little bit. And if we get some time after the meditation, absolutely. So great question to bring up, because this is what we are going to talk about.
Okay.
If we don't get to it in this session, 2 to 4, definitely. Yeah. And it does alleviate, it does help us, it does help alleviate the fear, because the fear is normal. I think probably a lot of us have fear around death and the unknown. And for me, a lot of it is, I definitely have a concern and a fear of dying in a lot of pain that can't be managed, and being really out of control like that with, you know, but when you think, so with Buddhism, one thing I would say, and some of my friends, we talk about this, is because those of us that have a belief in reincarnation, you've died many times before and you've survived it. Right. So, and again, but the problem with that is we don't remember past lives. Most of us don't remember. We don't remember being in other realms and things like that. If we did, I think it would tremendously ignite our practice. So that's the challenge we have, is I don't remember a past life. Did it exist? If I don't remember it, but I could also say to you, people I know that don't believe in reincarnation, and they say, well, I don't remember any of my past lives, so I don't think there is anything past. And then I'll say to them, do you remember being inside your mother when she was pregnant with you?
No.
Most people don't. Did that not happen because you don't remember it?
4 years old.
I mean, a lot of people I know can't remember what they had for breakfast yesterday. Did they not have breakfast then because they don't remember? So again, we can't always trust our memory to be totally accurate. And so that was something that gave me, I didn't believe in reincarnation when I got into Buddhism. And then I had to think about it. I thought, yeah, there's photos of my mother pregnant with me, but I don't remember that at all. I don't remember being in there at all, you know? So just ways that we can start to poke at that belief of, you know, because I don't remember, there was nothing then, doesn't exist. But that unknown is scary for us, and being out of control and in an extremely uncomfortable situation is not something we want to do. But the thing is, if we turn our minds more to practice, if we really get our minds, a lot of practice, I've mentioned this many times before, my practice a lot is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. You know, you meet an irritating person, you're in a job that you hate, your parent dies, your child dies, you're sick, this is life on the planet. And if I can't deal with some basic level of discomfort, I'm not going to be doing that well when I die. So a lot of Dharma practice is getting comfortable with these unfortunate challenges in life, which is part of what makes up life on the planet, makes up samsara, to turn. It's a Sanskrit word. It simply means to cycle. We're cycling through birth, old age, sickness, and death. That's life on planet Earth. So that's not going to be a great situation, but through my Dharma practice, I can familiarize myself to be more comfortable with what's happening, like that. So we're going to talk more about that. So thank you for bringing that up. Let's do a meditation right now on some of these 9 points of the death meditation. Just sit comfortably and you can lightly close your eyes. Now, when you analytically meditate on the Lam Rim, death and impermanence is just two of the topics of the Lam Rim. Lam is path in Tibetan, Rim, stages or steps on the path. What's the path to? Enlightenment. This is our underlying philosophy, the Lam Rim, the steps on the path. And it's a gradual process of getting me enlightened. And what I do is learn to do analytical meditation on the various topics. What it means is I'm analyzing. So when I say death is certain, I think intellectually here in your head, you have that. You understand you're going to die. You know you're going to die, but you don't have it here at the heart level, where there's an experiential realization, where I'm experiencing I am going to die. I am going to die. Where it rivets you in place. So when we do this meditation, and we're going to explore a few of the points, not all 9 of them, but we'll go through a few. If you ever get a feeling in your heart center or a gripping in your body, suddenly, wow, this is really going to happen. Then take all of your concentration at that moment, place it on that experience to deepen that insight as much as you can. Let it go deeper, then it's going to fade again. And distraction will come in and the mind starts spinning. And then analyze again. Oh, that's right. Who's the oldest person I know? How come the most powerful people on the planet still die? Whatever I'm walking you through, guiding you through, go back and focus on that again. And if you come to that riveted place again, stop analyzing and just put all your concentration on that. Try your best. So find a comfortable position, lightly close your eyes, and begin to settle the mind by focusing on the breath. And just check that there is a level of relaxation in your body. Meditation is not a gripping, taut, tense place. It actually comes much more organically when you've really been able to really disengage your nervous system and relax. Please focus and reflect that death is certain. Death is definitely coming to you. And just think, although this is an uncomfortable thought for many, think to yourself, I am definitely going to die. I am definitely going to die. And just think for a minute, reflect. Everybody dies. There's no power in the universe that can stop death from coming to me. There's no power in the universe that can stop the death experience from happening to me. Who is the oldest person you've ever known? Do you know anybody that lives to 150? Have you actually met anybody like that? And what about the most brilliant people who've existed on the planet? Famous or ones you've known? Could they figure out a way out of death? Explore. Scientists, physicists, mathematicians, literary figures. Think of the most creative people on the planet or the most powerful people on the planet. These are people you'd think would be able to sort it. Have they escaped death? And think again, I am definitely going to die. I am definitely going to die. Let that penetrate from your head to your heart as much as possible. Reflect on how every moment you're closer to death. An inhalation and an exhalation. And now I'm another breath closer to death. And another breath. We're another Saturday closer to death. Another July. Another month, day. Another moment closer. Feel the passage of time, the ticking every second. I'm another second closer. And think in the back of your mind, I am definitely going to die. I am definitely going to die. And think about the little time left to practice Dharma. Think about how little time there is to more formally practice a spiritual path. I am definitely going to die. Can I resolve from these 3 points that I will practice? I have to get a spiritual practice happening. I will do it. I have to do it. But we don't think our death will happen soon. We think we have time. But reflect on, we have no idea when we will die. This planet has a very unfixed lifespan. Think of all the different ages people are when they die. Reflecting on all of these different ages. Just think, I have no idea when I'm going to die. I have no idea. My death could happen tonight or tomorrow. We have no idea when we're going to die. Think of the disasters that happen on the planet. Think about the COVID virus that's now spreading around the planet, and how many didn't think they could die of it who have died. Think of natural disasters, illnesses, bacterias, viruses that infect us. Some people I know now are engaging in a lot of home projects because they're home. I know some people that have nearly fallen off of ladders in and outside their homes trying to fix things. I myself, climbing around my father's garage trying to reach some boxes, fell. Fortunately, caught myself. Could have ended up with a head injury on the floor with a brain bleed. I have a friend whose young husband fell out of a loft in their house fixing something, broke a bone, like a collarbone, that punctured an artery, and he bled to death in 10 minutes on the floor. He wasn't expecting that to happen when he woke up in the morning. This happens to people every day. Think about that. Reflect on that deeply. Any moment, something could infect the body or an accident could happen you are not planning for, and you die unexpectedly, prematurely, because we have no idea when we're going to die. And let's resolve from this second main heading, not only am I going to develop a Dharma practice, I will practice now. I will practice now. And if we think how our position, our money, our possessions are really not going to help us, friends and family are of limited help to us, and our body is not going to help us, can we resolve to not only develop a spiritual practice, but to get to it now so that it is rich and consistent, and that is what will be there. Familiar in our mind to support us at the death time. Can you resolve that in your heart? Feel that now if you like. Please relax, and when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. For the remaining time of this session till noon, I want to start talking about the death process according to the Tibetan tradition of what happens. And there's different visions that happen as you go from a grosser reality to a subtle experience. And Tibetan Buddhism believes that your body and mind are supported from a gross experience, there's a subtle experience of them, and there's a most subtle experience. For instance, the body has a most subtle experience of that is considered a most subtle wind. A most subtle wind. It's a type of energy that is physical in nature. And they say that most subtle wind is what allows the fertilization of the sperm and egg to occur. It supports that. And sperm and egg are physical, as we know. So physical things can create other physical things. And it allows that fertilization to take place at the very moment of conception, like that. So, and then the cells, as we know, start to replicate. And that creates our body. That absolutely creates this matter, something physical, okay? So first I've got this grosser level of my body. I don't mean gross, disgusting. I mean gross that you can see this. And I can even explain and show you a gross wind right now. For instance, one that you can follow is my respiration. Okay, you see my body rise. You hear the breath. Okay, that's the gross wind. That's the gross wind, okay? There's subtle wind as well that supports my body, but we're not aware of that. We're rarely aware of the subtle wind. This is the way the subtle wind works. I have what's called upwardly moving subtle winds in my body. What do? They support everything from kind of the waist up. They allow me to speak, move my mouth, chew food, swallow, blink my eyes, cry, turn my head. All supported by upward moving subtle winds. There's downward voiding subtle winds that allow me to digest food, go to the bathroom, sit down, walk, have sexual orgasm. Downward voiding subtle winds. Again, we're not really aware that there's winds doing it. But as a natural course of aging, and you notice this with old people, you notice how they get lower to the ground. Their body kind of curves over naturally. Their spine actually shrinks. The bone structure shrinks, scientifically proven, right? But what also happens, they shuffle. My father used to shuffle. You know, he was the fastest walker in the whole family, 6'5", long legs. We were always racing to keep up with him till he got old. And somehow the subtle winds naturally start dissolving and absorbing in aging. It's a natural process. And as a result, it's harder for you to pick up your feet and move, and you shuffle. And I've noticed in my own aging, and I'm not, that old, but I just notice how I'm a little more cautious when I'm walking down a steep hill on a rainy day, and just noticing the more likelihood of me slipping, and I tend to move a little more slowly because my subtle winds are dissolving and absorbing. So they're not necessarily supporting me to catch myself if I slip, as I am when I'm younger. And you see younger people, how they move through space with subtle winds, less degenerative, okay? So it's a normal process, okay? And then there's the subtle wind, again, that supports like that life force. The most subtle wind, is like a life force. We know this in other spiritualities. In the Chinese system, they often call it qi. In the Hindu Ayurvedic system, it's called prana. In the Tibetan system, it's called lung. Lung, wind. Most subtle wind energy, okay? And so what happens is all these subtle winds, when you're dying, your gross wind stops and there's that last exhalation. And that we sometimes witness with people we've been with when they're dying. There's a last kind of rattling, if it's a slow death, old age, a last rumbling, and there's no more inhalation. And then we declare people dead, clinically dead in our system. Tibetan Buddhism says, oh no, there's a whole wealth of stuff still going on. Still going, person could still hear, practices can be done. And what happens is the subtle winds start dissolving. The ones from the top part of the body dissolving down. Everything dissolves into the heart center, not the heart, the organ, but in a subtle energy system located around the heart center. And all the lower downward voiding winds are coming up from the bottom, meeting at the heart. Okay, and Tibetan Buddhism system says there's energy centers in your body according to this subtle system. Chakras. Chakra simply means in Sanskrit, wheel. Chakra, wheel. And there's a chakra, an energy center at the crown chakra. There's one at the throat. There's one at the heart. There's one at the navel, one at the sexual organs. And there's lots of little energy centers around the body, but those are kind of the main chakras. And at the heart center, that chakra has certain stems that come off, but in the center, there is a center of that heart chakra, not at the heart, the organ, but they say there is a central channel that runs through these chakras, connecting them slightly more towards your spine. And what we're trying to do in higher level practice is bring these different winds, these more subtle winds that experience in the body around the heart, and bring them into the central channel at the heart. And that's how you actualize enlightenment, okay? But in order to do that, you need to control the winds better. And every time we get irritated and experience a delusion in the mind, those winds are out of control, okay? So we train ourselves slowly through meditation to control those winds. And we first do it through preliminary practices and meditating on the Lam Rim. And when we're able, if we're interested, we can take tantric empowerment or initiation to then practice Tantra through a generation stage and a completion stage where we can focus and train ourselves to bring those winds in the right way. So these winds, subtle winds, start dissolving everything to the heart center, like that. And then eventually everything is in this, what's called at the heart center, in the center of that heart chakra is an indestructible drop. And inside that is contained the most subtle wind, and mounted on that is the most subtle mind. This is the purest experience, clear light nature of your mind in its clearest, purest experience. Most luminous. Not something that many of us are used to experiencing, but that is there all the time in your body right now, okay? And then what happens is all these winds dissolve, and then we start to have visions as the gross consciousness, our gross mind starts dissolving. Our gross mind is one we're very familiar with. I'm speaking right now, you're hearing words I'm saying. I have thoughts in my head. I have memories, I have concepts. Those are gross levels of mind that we can trace and follow. I think everyone understands that. Then there's subtle experiences of mind. Just as the body has a gross, subtle, and most subtle experience based on the winds, the mind has gross, subtle, and most subtle. So the subtle experiences of the mind are harder for us consciously to experience. But sometimes in deeper meditation, sometimes in longer retreat, the mind gets into a very subtle experience. And you can sometimes see these fluctuations of the consciousness or movements of mind, okay? And so what they'll say in this subtle experience of your mind is, in a finger snap, there's technically 64 fluctuations of your consciousness. In that, 64 fluctuations, movements of your consciousness. Are you catching that? Probably not. Okay, that's how subtle it is. It's like my mind is moving 64 times in that. Yeah, that's subtle. That's pretty subtle. So I'm not catching all of that, but the mind is moving. Okay, and then there's the most subtle mind or consciousness. Again, this clear light, incredibly, exquisitely luminous, radiant experience of your mind. Okay, and when you die, everything comes back to that naturally. What happens though, for ordinary beings, we don't recognize it. I don't recognize that most luminous experience because I haven't familiarized myself with it enough through meditation. like that. The reason we want to recognize that clear light moment at the time of death, and we can do it during our lives, it doesn't cause our death, but we can slowly familiarize ourselves with that through meditation, is that's an opportunity for us to meditate on emptiness, to actualize higher states of realization. And you do it more readily at the death time because all the gross other things are falling away. Nothing to encumber us anymore. That's why death can be an exciting time for a meditator. Again, you're using that most subtle experience of your consciousness to meditate on emptiness, a lack of inherent nature, okay, of a concrete existence of your I arising, of yourself. And you can more readily meditate it at that death time if you're familiar with it and experienced, to actualize more highly realized states that help you get you enlightened like that and create a very positive rebirth for you in the future. So we're going to continue after the break with more specifics about this death process. What are the visions that come? How can you meditate on that, like that? And any last question right now before we take a break? Anything about the meditation we did or the gross, subtle, most subtle experience I'm talking about with the body and mind? Yes, please, Teresa.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification about the contents or what that subtle drop in the heart chakra that you were talking about. So you said that is the most subtle mind, but did you say that it is something else as well?
Yeah. So in the indestructible drop at the center of your heart chakra, this subtle energy system, okay, is, and that's debatable as well. Like I asked, we did some high level practices years ago in California with some great teachers, 6 yogas in Aropa and things like this. And one teacher was saying it's debated sometimes whether this central channel really exists or was it a device that just helped people to bring their mind's attention there. Doesn't matter. Either way, when you get to that level, you can do those exercises and they're quite effective like that. So what I was saying is the most subtle mind contained in that indestructible drop at the heart center is mounted on the most subtle wind. And they always ride together through rebirth after rebirth after rebirth, from one life to the intermediate stage, the bardo, to the next rebirth, to the intermediate stage in the bardo, to the next rebirth, the next rebirth. Again, most subtle mind, mounted on most subtle wind like a rider on a horse. However, most subtle mind is not physical in nature. It doesn't create your body, okay? That's what the most subtle wind does. That physical energy of lung, that wind, is physical in nature, creates the body. However, what Tibetan Buddhism says, it is the most subtle mind that it has a way separate. It's not physical, but they're separate, but they ride together. And it is the karmic imprints in that most subtle mind that influence how that life is going to be, how that fetus develops, whether there'll be deformity, whether there will be brilliance, whether there will be an easy, fantastic life with spiritual practice and a lot of happiness and good health, or whether there'll be tremendous difficulty and things like that, is all based on the karmic imprints that we've created in the most subtle mind with all the activities of our body, speech, and mind. Okay, let's take a break.